Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the podcast, episode number 2 with Hing Potter. This is actually the first episode that I recorded once I was working towards premiering this podcast. So we recorded a little while ago, beginning of October. So apologies if some of the dialogue is dated, but generally all evergreen stuff. Talked with Hing, who is a student affairs professional and political news junkie. He's written for our blog before, so I'll link out to that post, but just a generally cool guy. Appreciate his kind of general geekiness, but also kind of politically focused and civic engagement nerdery. So he really gets into that and his story and his background, and just really appreciate his time and his insights and his energy. Is really great. So you'll find everything that we talk about in the show notes, and ways to connect with Hing as well. But it's a really great episode, and really excited for you all to listen. So I appreciate you taking the time to check it out. So without further ado, and after this quick message from our sponsor, this is episode number 2 with Hing Potter. It's an honor to have our good friends at SwiftKick be a sponsor of the podcast, because I've seen their work firsthand, and it's truly unlike any student leadership training I've experienced. They've been voted Best Student Leadership Program unprecedented 5 times, so you know they must be doing something right. As a bonus for our listeners, SwiftKick is giving a $500 discount off their normal speaking fee if you mention Higher Ed Geek when you contact them. I highly recommend their trainings for your campus, as your students will be talking about it for months afterwards. It's really great stuff. Check them out, swiftkickhq.com, to learn more, and let them know I sent you. Now, back to the show. But yeah, I mean, I want to at least start this out before we kind of get to other, I guess, more fun stuff, just so people can kind of get to know you and your background and kind of how you got to be, where you are today. So if you just kind of want to give like a brief summary of your background and where you are now and kind of how you got there.
Sure. So I was actually adopted when I was 4 from Cambodia. And I grew up outside the Seattle area on an island called Whidbey Island, where I went to school and everything, K through 12. And then I went my first 2 years of college were at a community college. And that's where I first heard or learned about this whole field of student affairs and student development. I was a resident assistant in housing, and my director eventually became did become my first mentor in the field. And we're still really good friends, still stay in touch today. We go hang out and barbecue, all that kind of stuff.
Nice.
And we were doing this activity one day during RA training, and he introduced himself first and his whole history. And we did this thing called life maps. And on his life map, he had this upside down pink triangle, and I was like, what is that? Like, tell me about that. And then he went into this whole story about how he wanted to go through student development and how to support the LGBT community more. And I said, what is student development? And he said, well, it's this whole field in colleges and universities. And I said, wow, that's awesome. Like, how can I do that? Or can I do that? Like, what do I need to do? And he's like, well, you just, do X, Y, and Z, and eventually you can get there. And so then after my first 2 years, I transferred to Boise State University in Idaho. Uh-huh. And then I got my undergrad, though, was my side passion or my side geekiness is in politics. And so I got my undergrad in political science, international relations, but I still kept in touch with the student affairs stuff. I was an orientation leader at Boise State. I worked as an ambassador in the admissions office. And then I eventually worked full-time after I graduated with College of Western Idaho as their student life coordinator. And then after that, I moved back out here to the Seattle area, where I now work at Edmonds Community College in the admissions office and enrollment services. So professionally, I've been in student affairs, higher ed for about 5 years now. Uh-huh. And I just started my master's program in higher education administration with Northeastern University. So I'm really excited for that. But yeah, that's kind of my journey a little bit. from the beginning.
Yeah. Well, I guess just tell me a little bit more now, since I know that's kind of one of those things that people talk about a lot. So I guess just to sort of hover here for a little bit, like you've been working professionally full time for, a couple of years and now are pursuing your master's. There's a lot of people, and I think kind of a funnel that leads people directly from undergrad to a student affairs program to get their master's, and then they kind of go off. What was that process like for you that made you want to go back to do it? Because I think that certainly has a lot of value. You're bringing in so much experience, and you're sort of kind of learning and kind of a synergy, I guess, of you're bringing things into the classroom from your experience, and then I assume you're bringing what you're learning in the classroom back to your daily work. So I guess there's obviously a lot of value in that versus someone coming directly from undergrad. But I guess talk to me through what that experience has been like for you right now, and sort of what that decision point was like for you to lead you to go back to to get that professional degree.
Yeah. Well, we're in week 5, I think, of my program,
Okay.
and definitely the first few weeks has been an adjustment because it's been a few years since I've taken classes anywhere, and just trying to get into that rhythm, that momentum of the whole aspect of self-care, but on a more intentional basis for me, because I have my full-time job and then I'm also doing grad school full-time. But I think that it's been really interesting so far because there's been a lot of discussions around conflicts in higher education and types of organizational theories in academic settings where I can pull some of that professional experiences and reflect on it a little bit more. And I think that'll be different than somebody who comes from an undergrad program straight into a grad program, where they might have a different lens on it, maybe more likely from the student employee experience, whereas mine would be from the professional experience. So as a semi, dare I say, veteran, I guess, that's been a really interesting thing to kind of read some of the discussions and talk with other students in my classes. But just kind of the biggest challenges, I think, is so far just kind of reacclimating myself to the classroom environment and getting, 2 schedules down and each week meeting the demands and the deadlines for each thing that I do. So, but I enjoy it a lot.
Good. Well, and I guess it's probably the same thing where certain people, depending on their trajectory or desired path, going for a doctorate in whatever discipline they might want, of just where it feels like you might hit a wall at a certain point in what you want to do. You kind of feel like you need that master's. And I would say that that's probably a pretty universal truth, but that people don't have to necessarily go that well-treaded path of just directly out of undergrad to a grad program. Because like I said, I just feel like there can be a lot of value added from bringing in professional experience in terms of just relating what you're reading about to the reality that someone is seeing every day on their campus. So it's just cool to see there, and I wish you luck, because you just started, so it's still kind of getting used to it and kind of dipping your feet in there. But that's great. So I guess just generally, if it's maybe just over the entire time of kind of the thing that's kept you going, or just specifically what drew you to your current role, what do you enjoy most about the work that you do right now? And just kind of, I guess, elaborate on that a little bit of just what's that thing that keeps you going, that keeps you kind of enthusiastic about the work you do?
Well, so for originally my focus was on trying to just be an advocate for students that needed it. There's that cliche saying, be who you needed when you were younger. So kind of that mentality that I have, but working previously more in the student life side, and helping students to kind of find their voice through discourse and through involvement and engagement. And so to translate that over into the enrollment management side of admissions, you can definitely be a little bit more hands-on in terms of having to know what's happening out there politically maybe in the landscape or environmentally in the landscape, and even just locally here with the different things that are happening. There's just a huge multitude and diverse dynamic that is out there right now, that it's very difficult for people of all ages, whether they're high school seniors or adult learners coming back after some time, or just anybody who's just never gone to college before, having to navigate the admissions steps to get into school. And so I've kind of been able to take that whole concept of being an advocate and being a voice for those students in a different way. And so whether that's in a meeting here on campus or working with a nonprofit or local business and saying, this is what the experience has been like for the students that I work with, and this is the feedback that we're getting, and just putting, and the students might not be at the table of discussion, but I can be that advocate when we're having those talks and making those decisions that are going to impact the students. So I really enjoy that aspect of advocacy and student support, and making sure that matriculation is a streamlined effort for students to get the access that they need, because they want to go to college, they want to get a degree and stuff, but we make it super difficult, which is a bummer. But I really enjoy the part of kind of being that voice for them in that aspect.
Yeah, and I think I guess it's just kind of the people that, and I say this in a lot of different contexts, but people who just kind of like get it. I think the people who are kind of like higher ed people who, choose to pursue a master's program and like really immerse themselves in the knowledge bases and are always like learning about just what's happening and kind of keeping like, fingers on the pulse of, just sort of student issues and stuff. It's just like, because I feel like I kind of have that capacity in a role that I have now, where there's not a lot of other like kind of quote unquote higher ed people, like people who kind of get it. It's people who like do great work in higher ed and, enjoy the work. But I think it's definitely something different when you are just so engaged and plugged in and just immersed in the discipline and the knowledge and like really committed to the work. So that's good stuff. Well, then, I mean, that does, you kind of set up a good segue here, because I mentioned that you wrote for the site before, and it was just kind of about like, what do like student affairs people, what do higher ed people geek out about? And you wrote about geeking out about politics and just kind of civic engagement and, just getting people engaged in that process. And I think, I was looking back at like, it wasn't that long ago that you wrote that post. And I think now, that it's so much dominates so many people's worlds now just by like necessity, because it is just their livelihood, their future, their, just their life is being really impacted by things that are happening, and just a lot of uncertainty and, just things that require just a lot of attention and a lot of like, resistance, or just, just being aware of what's happening in the world. So I'm sure that's probably only more so true now of just your enthusiasm for civic engagement. I guess if you want to talk more about that, or just, kind of like your history with kind of civic engagement, and if you've always been into it or how you got turned on to it originally, just like, what do you geek out about currently? And, just kind of explore that for us a little bit.
I think for me, it started off when I was little. I like to argue a lot. And so maybe naturally I kind of leaned a little bit towards the idea of being a lawyer, an attorney or something. But just because in high school, I can remember it was the presidential election for Bush versus Gore, and I was a freshman actually then, and we were doing this whole caucus thing, deciding who's going to be the delegates and stuff for the community, and I ended up being an alternate, which was kind of cool because they say your name at the caucus and stuff, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like everybody's talking about important issues and things that matter to them, and having to justify why it matters to them. And so I kind of just maybe got hooked from there a little bit. But then going through high school and college, kind of getting more acclimated to what is happening in our world, how it's evolved, and what do leaders do when it comes to just making huge decisions that are going to have an impact on not just the local community here, but nationally as well, and internationally. So for me, it was, well, I want to have a say in what happens, but I also want to be able to engage and discuss with people on how things happen. I didn't want to just be a sole decision maker, or a sole influencer. And so when it comes to politics and having that discussion on campuses, I think that it can be a very vibrant discussion and a healthy discussion if people are doing it the right way, and being open and inclusive about different opinions. You don't have to agree with them like we all say, but it's good to just be aware of what people are thinking and how they're thinking. Actually, it kind of applies. In one of my classes, we're talking about what is the role of higher education, and the discussion, one of them was being a individual political system of healthy discourse and actionable items that might arise, and how you might have a discussion around those actionable items. And so when you're talking to staff, faculty, and students, what is going to be maybe the most promising practice, depending on what institution you're at or what community that you're in, to have those discussions and maybe be a little bit courageous in voicing what it is that you believe in. And it's super exciting for me to see people step up and stand up for something, and kind of engage others and build this grassroots efforts that are here on college campuses. Not necessarily, maybe it's not to make a political point or something, but it's to at least bring around awareness to a political point or a political way of thinking. And I think that is what's super exciting about it, and that's what I kind of geek out about. I have my own political philosophies and reasons for doing things, but it's always interesting for me to hear other people's perspectives, as long as it's done in a healthy way that's not going to marginalize or cut out anybody's identity or anything like that. So and that in itself is its own discussion of how to do that and not do that on college campuses.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of a major issue is just kind of figuring that out of just like free speech. And I think, as I said many times on my other podcasts, like I feel like that's a topic in and of itself. That's like a whole other episode. But so yeah, and I think it's just like that's the way that I think that's the way the system has to work, where it's not just kind of ego driven. Like I think I'm right, I'm going to shout the loudest, or I just want to be kind of like a junkie, like a political junkie, and just absorb all this information and all that. It's like, it's about discourse. It's about informing people. It's about getting people engaged and, signed up to vote so that they can, just do that kind of civic duty, but also like, just care about what happens locally and state level and nationally and internationally. Just getting people, aware of what's going on, aware of the power that they have and what they can do and the impact they can have. And I think it's great just, that's like just a thing that you geek out about. And then that is kind of exciting for you beyond just, like I said, just being like a political news junkie or something, which I feel like a lot of people are. They're just kind of almost like, it's their gossip. It's their, just sort of, I don't know, a thing that's almost like a guilty pleasure, but I don't feel like they're really doing anything about it. Like they're not actually trying to, make any sort of positive impact. So,
well, I think part of it is like you have to be a little bit of a political junkie so that you can know what is being discussed out there. But it's what you use with that. It's what you do with that information that really matters. And I think that promoting civic discourse and civic engagement is the most powerful thing out there help them be aware and to encourage them that, it's not a bad thing to talk about politics that people might think it is today. It's like you said earlier, it's a necessity almost, because it's in our everyday jobs, everyday lives, and whether you're in higher education or working at a hospital or working at a small mom and pop shop, you're going to be affected by things that happen in the political realm, no matter what.
Yeah. And I think, it's just the idea that I think, you know, good ideas come from like good collaboration and compromise and like people, because it's like I can see where people are coming from with their own ideas, and people just have to have that discussion in a respectful way. So I guess, with all of that, of just like the positive impact of people just being more aware of what's happening in society and everything, like any kind of things more with that in terms of just like the, positive impact it's had for you personally in terms of just like, impacting another person, or like just a positive result, or just like, how does this thing that you geek out about, like, how does it positively contribute to your life? How do you see it just being like a thing that is worth committing time and committing energy to like continue to just like?
I think positively it helps me just be in the know, and it encourages me to, when I hear something that either I might question or that I might be more interested about, it encourages me to kind of do my research, look at the facts, and then when I am in a discussion, whether it's on campus or with friends or family or whatever, I can use that information to legitimize an opinion or one way or another. And because what is academia? It's doing your research. It's being able to cite your sources and using information and data and knowledge to argue your point or to clarify an opinion or disprove a theory. And essentially that's what it is when it comes to politics and just knowing your stuff and making sure that things are accurate. And so positively, it's allowed me to be more fruitful in discussions and reinforce that with different folks that I might talk to, just reinforce like, hey, let's talk about the facts. Let's talk about the facts. Let's not get too emotional because, naturally as human beings, we want to be emotional. We want to make rational decisions off of irrational behaviors, but it doesn't work. And so how can we kind of like still be aspirational when it comes to policies and things, but still be grounded in our thoughts and our way of doing stuff at the same time. So I think that's been the positive experience for me, one of them. And then the other positive thing for me, I think, has been that as I've gone out and been civically engaged in different areas, I've volunteered for several different campaigns in Idaho and in Washington. And I've had the privilege of meeting some pretty interesting folks out there that were, state representatives, state senators, and U.S. congressmen and senators. And to kind of talk to them even for just a few minutes has been an incredible privilege, because these are people that are making the decisions for you at either your state capitol or your U.S. capitol, and the fact that I got 5 minutes of their time, maybe I made a small difference, maybe I didn't, but I tried to maximize my voice when I met with them, and that was pretty cool too.
Yeah, that's very cool. So I guess with that of just being, as well informed as you can be, or just kind of, like well versed in issues or history or whatever it might be, what is kind of like the media that you're consuming? Like, what are you reading, watching, listening to, sort of wherever you'd want to come at this from? Like, what's kind of the stuff that you're consuming right now and enjoying, and maybe like want to share out with the audience?
The news and keeping up on on events, current events. I try to watch the nightly news every as much as I can, and just kind of get a good briefing of the day's events. And then reading, because I work in academia, I like to read the Chronicle of Higher Education. But then even for fun, like to kind of de-stress, I still kind of keep it political a little bit, which is interesting. But I de-stress by watching reruns of The West Wing. But then recently, like the newer shows, I've been watching Designated Survivor and that one TV show with Kerry Washington, Scandal. I don't know if you've seen that. And I know that those are all kind of politically related, which is interesting, but those have been kind of like my little pleasures on the side.
Yeah. Yes, I think, because I feel like I just need to like go through the West. Like it's just one of those shows where it just almost seems like so daunting. Like there's so much of it, but
that podcast about the West Wing. I don't know if you've heard of that or not. He's one of the characters from the show started this podcast, and they go through every single episode, and they just dissect it, line by line and scene by scene, and it's super interesting. And then that also has made me want to just kind of go back and watch each episode of The West Wing through a different perspective with more information and more insights from the characters and directors and producers themselves, which is kind of cool. So if you ever get a chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I like. Something that like I realize like how much I like it that I'm willing to like watch it again with commentary. Like there's not everything. I'm just like I don't need to watch this again, but it's like certain things I'm like I'll watch it with people talking over it, like with just like behind the scenes stuff. So that's great because and on that point of just like kind of almost getting your like daily dose. Because like I'm a big NPR guy, so like I'll listen on the NPR One app and they'll do like just like the national newscasts and local newscasts, like whatever's from like the top of the previous hour, and then just kind of a mix of everything else. But it's like it's been I think like a old standby for a reason. Just like the evening news, it's going to give you like the daily recap of of everything that you need to know. So definitely recommend almost that, like, because I know there's like emails that do it, like just kind of roundups of stuff, or like like podcast or NPR on the radio, or YouTube videos, whatever, like just kind of keeping up on what's going on, and like small doses I feel like are important.
That NPR One app, that's my morning shower routine, is the NPR One app.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's good stuff. I highly recommend it. Because I think if obviously if you drive, like you can get NPR obviously like in your car radio, but like if I'm like commuting like on the train or just walking or just like like hanging out, like doing laundry or something, like I can just throw that on where I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't like I haven't listened to the news today. So it's available, smartphones, tablets, you can your browser or whatever. Highly recommend that. I'll include that in the show notes.
Sure. Go download it.
This will be the kind of the last question, and we'll include ways for folks to connect with you as well on Twitter. But just to kind of wrap up here on an optimistic note, that's sort of the vibe that I want to get from these episodes and stuff. So talked a lot about like what you're into currently, and just sort of how you got to be where you are today and stuff. But just to end, what is something that you are looking forward to in like your job, in life, in the world? If it's like a new movie, a TV show, or just like something professionally that you have coming up, like a conference, just like what's sort of something exciting that you're looking forward to in your life?
Well, I heard that the new Star Wars trailer is coming out tomorrow.
Yes.
So I'm kind of excited for that. And so that's kind of really short term. And then in November, I get to go off on this whirlwind adventure for almost a month, where I get to go to the NASPA Western Regionals Conference in Hawaii. And so if anybody's out there listening, I'll catch me in Hawaii. And then after that, I will be going to San Diego for an adult learners conference. and then I'll be heading up to Los Angeles to help facilitate the Circle of Change Student Leadership Conference at Cal State Dominguez Hills. So I'm super excited about that. And then long term, I'm just really looking forward to the day where I can say that I finally have my master's and graduate from grad school. So, and then right after that, I probably go into a doctorate's program. But I get that's all kind of work related. I guess personally for me, some stuff that I'm looking forward to is this winter. I kind of want to go on a couple winter hikes out here in the Cascade Mountains in Washington. I know it'll be freezing cold, but I think it'll be worth it. I really love getting out to the outdoors and using that as kind of like my sanity island a little bit. And then I each once a month I try to visit my family that's out on Whidbey Island and just get away from the big city life here in Seattle and just kind of like isolate myself a little bit. So that'll be coming up here in a couple weeks. So I'm really excited for that too as well. Yeah, those are a couple things.
Yeah, all good stuff. Yeah, I mean, personally, I know I'll just see how much I repeat the same things, try to keep choosing different things for all these podcasts, depending on when I record them. But yeah, so like I just love any excuse to go out to the theater for like a good movie. So yeah, like sure. Star Wars, of course, Thor Ragnarok, and like maybe the Justice League. I don't know, I'm still undecided. But and then yeah, I mean, that's a lot of cool stuff you have coming up, like professionally, because yeah, it's like I think the one thing that I have that so I'm sure over time I'll get more into it if people aren't aware with my job and stuff. But so we support online students in the MBA program. Like I'm essentially their academic advisor, and we have in-person immersions for the online students once every quarter.
Cool.
So they rotate different locations all over the country and all over the world. So up in December, everyone's coming together in San Francisco. So like that'll be the one that I'm attending. And it's been a while since I've been, one of the immersions. So I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to some good movies coming out the rest of this year. And also, because I haven't gotten a new video game in a while, Star Wars Battlefront looks really great. So probably getting.
What platform are you playing it on?
PS4 is my weapon of choice. So
are you going to be getting that? Are you an Xbox at all or no?
Yeah, I had a gap in time where I had no systems. I used to have both a 360 and a PS3. Got rid of everything when I was like in grad school and like early professional years. But now I'm like, I have the itch again. Like it was like I've gamed for my entire life, and I was just like, I need something, and finally settled on getting the PS4. So I'll probably to get it on there.
I think it's the Xbox X. That's supposed to be coming soon, I guess. And the only way I know about that is because I go to Seattle Sounders soccer matches, and I guess this Sunday they're going to be wearing special Xbox X1 jerseys because they're the sponsors, the jersey sponsors. So
there you go.
But then I looked it up really quick. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So, but yeah, and then another movie that for me that will be or did come out actually, but I haven't watched it yet, and I'm ashamed to say it that I have not watched it yet, is Wonder Woman, and I've heard nothing but good things about it, so I need to get that on my watch list.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're in for a treat. That is definitely something I look forward to. Yeah, it's a great movie, and if anyone else has not watched it yet, I believe it's out wide, and if not, it may be when this episode goes out. So go rent it, go buy it, go stream it, whatever your method of choice there, but. So all good stuff. I think, it's like there's always something to look forward to. I know that always helps me, whatever it is, something to look forward to and kind of work towards when, the days get long and days get tough. And that's where I like to end things. And like I said, we'll link out to stuff that we talked about in this episode, ways for folks to get connected with you online. And so I really appreciate your time here and sharing all that you did. All really great stuff, and definitely go register to vote if you haven't already, and get your students registered to vote. 2018 is going to be another more, kind of peak year, kind of the midterms there. So,
it's still super important. So.
Yes. Great. Well, again, I appreciate your time here, Hing, and just have a good rest of your night.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Have a good one. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. Please rate, review, and subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode of the Higher Ed Geek podcast.